Hey, I'm Daniel Cox. I'm a private chef here in Bozeman and Big Sky, Montana. I'm back today cooking a coffee and mustard crusted filet mignon from DeBrucker's Charolais beef. I'm going to put it with a black garlic and rosemary butter and some smoked truffle Yukon mashed potatoes. It's going to be delicious. Stay with us. So the rub that I'm going to put on top of the meat today, it's a coffee rub. Coffee has natural acidity, which helps tenderize the meat. Not like you really need it off of filet mignon, but it helps tenderize the meat because of the acidity in the coffee. But it also is going to create a really smoky, charred rub to go on top of that meat. The first thing that I'm going to do is grind fresh coffee with black pepper. This is going to bring out a lot of smokiness in the meat. It's going to create a really nice crust, but I'm also adding a little bit of brown sugar to the rub too, which is going to help caramelize the outside of the steak. So right there, I've got black pepper, fresh black pepper. It really does make a difference to use fresh black peppercorns over pre-ground black pepper. If that's all you have, it's going to be delicious, but this is going to be a lot more floral, have more good natural spice to it when it's fresh. So black pepper and coffee is going to go into the bowl. In the recipe, I have garlic powder, onion powder, brown sugar, salt, and smoked paprika. The brown sugar is going to caramelize on the outside of the steak. The coffee is going to add a little acidity, but also some smokiness. The smoked paprika is just going to kind of back up that smokiness. It's going to be a delicious rub. And there you go. Coffee rub. Goes good on any steak, pork, chicken. It's going to be delicious. So after I cook and I rest the steak, I'm going to put it back in the pan. I'm going to baste it with a black garlic and rosemary butter. Black garlic, you got regular garlic, no age at all. This is black garlic. It's aged garlic in a temperature and humidity controlled space for about 2 or 3 weeks until the cloves turn black. It has a very sweet flavor to it, fermented. It's very soft and has very good consistency of molasses. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add this whole clove of black garlic to 1 stick of butter. Black garlic's incredible. If you can't find black garlic at your local grocery store, you might even be able to get it online and have it shipped to you. What I'm going to show you is the best way to roast a full head of garlic. This recipe would be incredible with butter, roasted garlic, and the rosemary and the salt that I'm going to show you in a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a whole head of raw garlic, cut off the first quarter of it so you can see. You're going to take that whole head of garlic, you're going to put it into some tin foil and create a bit of a boat there. Then you're going to douse it in some olive oil. I'm going to throw this, I'm going to cover it up here. I'm going to throw this in the oven for 1 hour at 350 degrees. If you can't find black garlic in your grocery store, roasted garlic is going to do just great. So with that 1 stick of butter and that whole head of black garlic, that black garlic is going to add a really sweet garlicky flavor. It's fermented, so it has a little bit of umami, notes of soy sauce, nuttiness, sweetness. What we're going to do is we're going to add 2 sprigs of chopped rosemary and a teaspoon of salt. We're going to sear those steaks. We're going to let them rest. And we're going to put them back in the pan when we're ready to eat. We're going to baste it with the black garlic and rosemary butter. So once we've chopped our 2 sprigs of rosemary, you might want to go a little heavier on it if they're lighter sprigs. You might want to just do 1 if it's a big sprig of rosemary. We're gonna add that chopped rosemary into the butter with the black garlic and the sea salt. And we're gonna give it a nice mix with a fork. It doesn't have to be perfectly mixed. It's all gonna go into the pan. It's all gonna be basted over that hot steak. That rosemary is gonna release all of its oil. The black garlic's gonna add a ton of flavor. So don't feel like you need to mix this till it's absolutely perfect. About right there is really all you need. Now, before we start searing the steak, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about mashed potatoes. Russet potatoes work great in mashed potatoes. I prefer Yukon Gold. There's two types of potatoes. There's starchy, like a russet, or there's waxy, like a Yukon Gold or a yellow potato. I feel like yellow potatoes or Yukon Gold potatoes make such beautiful mashed potatoes because they're velvety and they're smooth and they add a sheen on the potato. It's just a personal preference. Try both. Do it the way you want. I have 1 pound of Yukon Gold potatoes. Always start with cold water. What it's going to do is it's going to cook your potato more evenly. You're not going to end up with a mushy, waterlogged potato because you dropped it into boiling water. The outside cooked before the core could cook. What you're going to end up with is a nice, firm potato that got cooked evenly. Start your potatoes in cold water. Always add a good amount of salt to season your potato as it cooks. You'll need to add less salt when you're mixing your mashed potatoes. So start your potatoes with cold water and bring them to a boil. They're going to cook for about 15-20 minutes. What I love about Charolais beef is the marbling, the intermuscular fat. It's not gritty or fatty. It's more buttery and velvety. These filet mignons are beautiful. They're going to be the most tender steak that you can find on the animal. But also because it's Charolais beef, it's going to have more marbling than you usually find in a filet mignon. It's going to have more intermuscular fat there, and it's also going to have a little bit of that fat cap on the outside. What I'm going to do with these steaks is I'm going to put a little spicy brown mustard, just a dollop on each side. I'm going to rub that in, and it's going to help make that rub adhere to the steak and keep it on there while it's in the pan. So just a little bit, a teaspoon on each side. You can rub it on the sides. And then what we're going to do is take that coffee, brown sugar, smoked paprika rub and put it on there pretty generously. We're going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. So we crusted those Charolais beef filet mignons with the coffee, with the smoked paprika, the garlic, salt, black pepper. We're going to cook it in a cast iron skillet. We're going to bring some oil to a smoking point in a cast iron skillet. We're going to drop those fillets in there. Now because there's brown sugar in the rub, we don't want to burn it. So we're going to cook it for about 1 minute on the first side. We're going to flip it and we're going to go into a 350-degree oven. For medium rare, we'll go in there for about 12, 13 minutes. Already you can smell the smokiness from the coffee. You can smell the smokiness from the paprika, but also the bit of caramelization, the sugar that's caramelizing from that rub, from the brown sugar. It smells incredible. On that first side, getting a little blackening action happening there. We're going to flip these over. And we're going to go into the oven for about 12 minutes. So for a perfect medium rare steak, we want to cook these to about 120 degrees. We're going to pull them out of the oven and baste them in that black garlic and rosemary butter. After they're done basting, we're going to let them rest for 10 minutes before we slice them. These are getting really close. I'm going to let them go for 2 or 3 more minutes. The Yukon Gold potatoes, we've been cooking for about 10 minutes. You want to do it until they're just fork tender. We're going to drain them and let them steam for about 3 or 4 minutes. What that does is it helps dry out the outside of the potato so you're not left with watery potatoes. So while those are finishing up cooking, I'm going to do a 1 cup of heavy cream, 1 stick of butter, and 1 tablespoon of salt. In that pot, I'm going to do liquid smoke and truffle oil. I'm using liquid smoke. One other way that you could incorporate smoke into your mashed potatoes is to actually smoke the cream. If you have a Traeger or a smoker at home, you could smoke the cream on a low temperature, 180 or lower, for an hour or two. It'll really pick up that smoky flavor. Use that smoked cream in your mashed potatoes and leave the liquid smoke out of the recipe. For this application, since I don't have a smoker, I'm gonna use liquid smoke. So again, in this pot, heavy cream, butter, salt, liquid smoke, and truffle oil. I'm gonna bring this to a boil. So I just pulled these steaks out of the oven. The internal temperature is 120 degrees. I'm gonna take this black garlic butter, put all of it in there with the 2 fillets. Over medium heat, I'm gonna let this black garlic and rosemary butter melt. Already you're hit with the herbaceousness of the rosemary, the kind of molasses, sugary flavor of the black garlic. Once that's melted, guys, I'm gonna start basting those steaks. And this is really what takes these steaks to a restaurant quality level, is the basting of them. It's going to finish cooking them up to about 125 degrees for medium rare, but it's also just going to incorporate so much flavor, and it's also going to create a sauce that's going to go over our dish. So once I've basted them a few times, I'm going to kill the heat, and I'm going to let those rest for about 10 minutes before I slice them. So the reason that we're going to bring the cream, the butter, the salt, and all the flavoring up to a boil is so that when we put them into the potatoes and we start to mash them for mashed potatoes, we're not adding cold cream onto hot potatoes. So it's going to keep the temperature up. I'm going to bring it to a boil. I'm going to kill that heat. This is ready to go and ready to be incorporated into our potatoes. So I cooked the Yukon potatoes for 12, 15 minutes. It's gonna differ based on the size of the potato, but you just wanna give it the fork test. I season the water pretty generously, so the potato is pretty well seasoned. This is the cream, truffle oil, the liquid smoke. I brought it to a boil so the potatoes didn't lose their temperature. I'm gonna add that in, only half to begin with, and start smashing. The biggest thing is you do not want to over mix your potatoes. If you've ever been to someone's house and they had gummy potatoes for Thanksgiving, that's why, is they were over mixed. So we're just going to mix these till they're crumbled to your liking and kind of mashed to your liking, but don't over mix them. Don't put them in a mixer and whip them. They're going to get gummy. So I added about half of that mixture. I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm not going to end up using all of it. You can put it in the fridge. You can save it for another batch of mashed potatoes. And there we go. Restaurant quality mashed potatoes with truffle, smoke, heavy cream, and butter. That's as good as it gets. So I've let our steak rest for about 10 minutes. What that does is it helps the juice kind of all settle into the steak. When we slice it, we don't want all the juice to run out. We want it to stay in the steak, or at least stay in the steak long enough to go on your mashed potatoes, go on your plate so that you can enjoy it. If you slice into a hot steak, it's just gonna lose all of that juice. So we let it rest for about 10 minutes, and we're gonna make our plate. So these are the Yukon Gold mashed potatoes with the truffle oil and the smoke. I'm going to go ahead and slice this steak. You don't have to. You can put it on your plate and slice it as you eat it. I'm going to come over it with some of that black garlic and rosemary butter. And I'm going to finish it with just some simple chopped chives. DeBrucker's Charolais animals are grass-fed right here in Montana and finished on Montana-grown grains. You can get all of DeBrucker's meats either individual or in packages, subscription packages, at dcmeats.com. And don't forget to get your ticket to the Charolais Cooking Classic coming up in June, where I'm going to be cooking the perfect cast iron New York strip. Thank you.